Coming up on today's episode.
From my perspective, like every house that we do a building and pest inspection on, whether it's a new construction or a repurchase, we always find something going on with the property. Even at minimal, we put a maintenance list together, and the report becomes a maintenance list. But there's always something we find in a property, and it might be early days of a leaky bathroom or something like that. And then what often happens with our reports is they get used as a negotiation tool as well.
100%.
So you often get that money back on what you pay for a build and pest report. But I guess everyone's got their own level of risk, and some people just don't want to get reports done and pay for a report because I get it, they're expensive. But in the grand scheme of things,
the way that I look at it is, you're spending what could be your life savings on a property. The building inspection report's small change for what, the value you get out of it. And, hopefully the building inspector comes out and says, this is a solid property.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Australian finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and on today's show, now look, this episode is for anyone who's thinking about skipping the building and pest inspection or wondering if it's even worth it. Now, if you've been out in market and you've heard the real estate agent go, no, it's going to hinder your offer, tune in, strap in. We've got two experts here that are going to break it all down. So we've seen all listings that look perfect until the cracks literally start to show. Joining me today, like I said, are one of the most trusted people in the business, Drew and Brooke Woods, the power couple behind 8 Point Building Inspections. With 130 five-star Google reviews and thousands of homes inspected, they're here to break down the difference between a building and pest inspection, bust a few myths, and share some juicy horror stories, safely anonymised, of course. Brooke and Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Jo.
Awesome. Thanks, Jo.
Of course. And I've been really keen for this one because building and pest always is so important. It's fundamental. And I know that, being in the real estate game, I'm always like, no, get a building and pest. You don't know what you're talking about. But there's always that uncle. There's always that expert in the family that goes, I can do it. And it opens you up to a whole world of risk, right? When you just want to save a few dollars. And I want to talk to you guys, about what you do, because I was blown away when I saw your Google reviews. I don't think I've ever seen a business that has actual 5-star consistently, like with over 130 reviews. Like, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've worked hard to get there. So, we appreciate it.
Oh, of course. And I have to give credit where it's due because, like I said, it's very rare. Where I see it, it's like always like a 4.8 and I'm like, oh, yeah, there's some random that's upset. It's like, but no, you guys are consistent. Like, what a great reputation you've built. And, tell us a little bit about how 8 Point got started. What brought you both into this industry?
I guess I've been in the building industry my whole life.
Yep.
Since I left school. Did a few different jobs here and there, but mostly in the building sort of sector. 10 years ago, I bought a gyms franchise, building inspection franchise.
Oh, really?
Just to get into building inspection because there was no real training for it. You can be a builder or chippy or whatever, but actually doing inspections is very different. So I bought a franchise to learn and to get some training. I lasted a couple of years in the gyms franchise, and then I just went out on my own. I realised that I didn't need the leads, I didn't need the support. I was bringing in so much business of my own that I just sort of went out on my own and started building a brand and a company. And then I was getting so busy that one-man bands. It's pretty, it's a lot of guys out there, sort of one-man bands, so you're answering the calls, you're doing everything, trying to make calls between jobs. I never used to answer calls while I was doing a building inspection because I didn't want to get distracted.
Of course.
Then, Brooke.
I joined you about 3 years ago. My background is in HR, and we were on holiday a couple of weeks in Tasmania and sort of sat there together and went, well, Drew needs some help in the business and why can't it be me? And then, what's our plan for the business moving forward? So I came on board to get him out of his paper diary, handwritten notes, and set up some systems and get everything electronic and moving, moving better. And, and then from there, it's allowed us to grow the business further. And it's been a great ride.
No, I love that for you guys. And, a lot of people, I think as partners, you know, you have that moment where you're like, you can see your partner drowning in something they're trying to build and trying to do, and they're doing well, but it's like you have nothing to manage it. And I think your background in HR would give you so much structure and like the proper way of setting it up. And that's such a good, you know, dynamic to have. So it makes sense why everything's well oiled on your side of the business.
Even I didn't even have a website until 3 years ago. Brooke was like, right, need a website, need to get this somewhere. You go, darling, whatever you think is going to help with the business. So
love it.
It's done really well with getting it to where we are now.
No, good on you guys. And, you know, it's like I said, yeah, the powerhouse behind it, right? So how does the day in, day out look for you guys? Is there any ever tension, or you know, you bring your house stuff to work?
A little bit. We do have a bit of a rule, try not to talk about business after certain hours. In the industry we're in, you know, we get calls over the weekend, in the evenings. It's pretty consistent. So it's just trying to manage all that. But, you know, we're pretty good at sending messages, we'll call you tomorrow or call you the rest of it. But we do have some rules, but it's doesn't always work.
That's it.
Day to day, I'm in the office, he's out on the road, so we're...
Oh, it's like you don't really,
We're working together, but not working together all of the time. The dynamic works.
I love that. Yeah. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to bang on about it because I'm so impressed, but like 135-star reviews, guys, like that's wild. What do you think clients love most about how you guys operate?
I think it's a lot about communication for us, right from the get-go of a client calling us, which is, you know, Brooke would be in the office, they take care of all of that, and just nursing clients, because, you know, the building inspections can be pretty scary, and actually just the whole process can be pretty scary, and they're dealing with agents and advocates and all that. So to come to us, you know, the communication right from the start through to when we do, you know, it gets handed over to us building inspectors, and, you know, massive part after we do a building inspection, I think one of the most important parts is calling the clients and just having a chat with them. And I think that consistency of just nursing our clients and helping them through the whole procedure is, you know, what really works for us, and try not to use big words and, you know, just break it down for them sort of things. I think that's, from my perspective, I think that's what's really worked for us.
And being efficient with the whole process as well. We can typically, from inquiry to getting the building inspection done, you know, 48 hours is a common turnaround time, depending on access to the property and the different the different things that might go with each individual inspection. But we can turn things around quickly. We're available on the phone, so if someone calls, someone's going to answer the phone. They don't need to wait for the building inspector to finish inspecting before they get a return call. So that efficiency has really, you know, it's really helped us, and you know, our regular client referral partners really appreciate that for their clients as well, knowing that we can deliver on the timeframes that they need us to deliver on.
That's so true, and I think, you know, with this space, like, you know, customers, especially the home buyers, right? Because I know on my side, when you don't work with an advocate, you see it all the time. Like, I used to be a real estate agent, and they would not only realise at the last minute that they needed potentially to get a building and pest. And it's probably because someone stepped in and told them, like a family member or maybe one of their professionals, like a conveyancer or mortgage broker, said you should probably get a building and pest, and they're like, crap. And then you have to pick up the phone and you get a 48-hour turnaround time. So I imagine that sometimes can create a lot of, scheduling mishaps and making things happen.
It's like playing Tetris sometimes with the building. The purchase process, we're typically the end of the line. So
that's right.
The purchaser needs to have their finance done, they need the contracts reviewed, and then, okay, we're ready to roll. We're going to participate at auction. We need the building inspection, and we often get calls on a Thursday for a Saturday auction, and we always make it work. We've done inspections on a Saturday morning for a Saturday auction.
Holy crap.
So that's, you know, our worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But with the team, we can generally juggle things around to free up time with someone, you know, to make something work. You know, we've got inspectors all over town, so if we massage the schedule, we can free up time. And, we never like to say no. I
really admire that, you know, and I think a lot of your clients, and it's very obvious, like, you know, the original question I asked is like, what makes up those 130, you know, 5-star reviews? This makes sense because, you know, people are dealing with the most stressful purchase of their life a lot of the time, or their sale, and they're coming to you guys in this mode of desperation. And it's so good that you have even though you, like you said, you don't like to say no, but you'll make it happen. It's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. So, you know, kudos to you two for building that kind of community around your business, because I think it's evident that people appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we find with, you know, especially with our advocates, we've got a big network of advocates that we do jobs for, and it's getting jobs done quickly so they can get a deal done. So it really helps them get a deal across the line. So it's they're quite often like, can you get this done for us? You know, it matters to them and it matters to the deal, so it really works as well.
We're you know, those, I'm sure they're quite convincing. They're like, please help me. It's like at that, you know, the 11th hour. I know I've done that before. I'm like, I'm so sorry, something fell through. But it's good. And, you know, I guess one of the questions, you know, that I wanted to go into here, and I'm interested to break it down, is I want to demystify, you know, the whole building and pest inspection process for our listeners, because like I said earlier, for anyone listening, you always get people that question whether it's worth it, right? And I want to understand the difference between the building component and the pest component. So obviously you're looking for two different things, but what's the combination when someone pays for building and pest when they're going to purchase their home?
Yeah, I guess, you know, when I'm doing a building and pest inspection, wear two hats, you know. So I go around and I do a building inspection, and that's, you know, structural defects, minor defects, major defects, right through to just, you know, maintenance items, and it's leaky bathrooms, it's, you know, leaky balconies, or, you know, that kind of thing. And then I go around and I do termite and pest inspections, or an inspection where, you know, I use what's called a donger, and I tap all the skirting boards and door frames, and I really think about how termites are going to get into this house. So, and they do correlate, you know, they do cross over. Say, for instance, a leaky bathroom. Termites love moisture. So I go, oh, it's a leaky bathroom. When I go around and do my termite checks, I'm going to really hone in on this area just to make sure there's no termites. So there is a crossover in the reports, but our reports are set out as in, you know, it's all building defects, and then it goes into the termite and pest defects. And also a big part of the reporting is, like, we don't find termites on every job. We don't find major defects on every job. But we still put in the report things that you can do to minimise the risk of termite attack. So, you know, the dripping tap or water service that's over, you know, dripping, that's a prime area where termites can get into, because termites love moisture. So we'll write in the report, conducive to termites, connect this to some drainage. So they're different, but there is a crossover in a lot of the defects where, you know, termites, you know, they do love moisture. That's, you know, moisture's a big killer of homes as far as major defects go.
What's probably one of the most common ones that you often see, and is there a particular sign to look out for?
With the building defects, yeah, I guess leaky bathrooms is massive, you know, and it's leaky bathrooms. There's quite often quite a lot of visible signs that you can see, even if you're going through on an open home. You know, if you're looking around the base of the shower or in the opposite side of the wall, like in the walk-in robe, you might see a bit of moisture damage. Moisture's a big one. Leaky bathrooms are a really common defect. Leaky balconies is a really common defect. I'd say probably 90+% of balconies I look at have some form of leaking.
Really?
So, yeah, and they've changed the design of balconies these days because they were just, you know, they just always leaked, you know, or you'd get sort of 10, 15 years out of them. But at the end of the day, you know, like, if you've got a balcony that's leaking, you know, the cost of fixing it up, you might be able to get that off in your asking, you know, the price that you're paying for the property.
That's true.
So, and with termites and pest, so there's definitely areas around Victoria that's much higher risk. Like, we're down Bayside sort of way, and there's termites all through there. So it's almost, if you're not finding termites in some of these areas, you're not sort of looking hard enough. But again, it's not always. If we find these defects in properties, it doesn't mean walk away.
That's right.
It's just, this is what the defect is. Think about what it's going to cost to maybe get some quotes and all the rest of it, and sort of then assess and go from there.
Yeah. There's no pass or fail for the inspection. It's a representation of the condition of the property when the inspection's done, and what that means to one purchaser versus another could be very different. Yeah, so it's about whether a purchaser is willing to take that on, whether they have enough money in their back pocket to, you know, to fix the repairs, or they might be intending to do a renovation. So the leaky bathroom doesn't mean very much to them because they're going to rip it out and replace it anyway. So sometimes it's, you know, and it's with the inspectors giving that feedback to the purchasers. It's about the context on, you know, what it means to them as well. So understanding what their intentions with a property is quite important too, so that the building inspector can deliver the feedback to them in a way that means something to them. So when we're taking an inquiry, if there's any of that information that we find out when we're talking to the client, then we pass that on, so the inspector's sort of going in with a bit of background knowledge as well.
No, and I think it's so important. And like you said, it's relative, right? Like you said, if someone's going to do like a renovation, they might not care that the bathroom's leaky. They're like, well, that bathroom's going, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And I think for a lot of listeners out there, like who have maybe experienced the home buying process already and had a building and pest, you'll find that like, you know, the reports, I saw some examples on your website. Your reports are very thorough, like, and I find them easy to understand. Like I know exactly what I'm going to get in the way of like how to fix the problems. Was there something that you did different too? Because, you know, I've gone through gyms before with some clients as well, and they do great reporting. I'm not going to say they don't, but it's different. Your reports tend to be something, I don't know, I understand them. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I guess I've learned over the 10 years of being in the business of, you know, I've been sent quite a lot of other reports where clients go, oh, we've seen this report from another inspector, can you have a look at it? And I sort of look at these reports and I found I was getting frustrated with them myself.
Yep.
So I'm like, what's going to make it easier? And for us, I guess, loads of photos of everything, our moisture readings, and photos not just of a moisture reading, photos of contents of where we're taking this reading, you know, far back sort of photos. Yeah, we're in a bathroom, we're at the top of the bath shower, and then we sort of try to tell the story of the inspection through photos. And we found photos are really good, but probably the conversation we have with clients as well, you know, about the report and explaining the report is, you know, a really big part of our business, really important. But yeah, I think the photos and the explanation on the, you know, the arrows and all the rest of it do make it a bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no, I had to say something about it as well because I'm like, this is so thorough. Like I've been through my time I've been through a fair share of reports, and some of them I'm like, oh my God, what's the problem?
Yeah,
I don't get it, you know. And I think one of the other, you know, sections, like a lot of people online say they're not necessary, right? So I always get the Reddit threads. I like to read through them, or, you know, TikTok, and I hear someone say, don't get a building and pest. I actually had someone on one of my videos comment and said, don't get a building and pest, complete waste of money. Just do it yourself. You'll be right if you have the understanding. And I did a reply to that video and said, I disagree in a nice way. But, you know, like I said, a lot of people online say it's not necessary, but, you know, what do you say to them? Like if they're tuning in now going, I don't know yet.
I guess from my perspective, like every house that we do a building and pest inspection on, whether it's a new construction or a pre-purchase, we always find something going on with the property. Even at minimal, we put a maintenance list together. The report becomes a maintenance list. But there's always something we find in a property, and it might be early days of a leaky bathroom or something like that. And then what often happens with our reports is they get used as a negotiation tool as well.
100%.
So you often get that money back on what you pay for a build and pest report. But I guess everyone's got their own level of risk, and some people just don't want to get reports done and pay for a report because I get it, they're expensive. But in the grand scheme of things,
the way that I look at it is, you know, you're spending what could be your life savings on a property. The building inspection report's small change for what, you know, for what the value you get out of it. And, you know, hopefully the building inspector comes out and says, this is a solid property. Here's some maintenance things to put on your list of things to do on the weekend in 6 to 12 months' time. And you can have that sort of a level of comfort that you're purchasing something that is, you know, a solid investment, or you're walking away for something that's going to cost you a lot of money down the tracks. Yeah, but everyone, like Drew says, has their own level of risk, and we've got to appreciate that.
Yeah, spot on. And I think, you know, a lot of people do question it, but I've always said, like you said just now, it's a drop in the ocean compared to what you're about to drop on this house. And, you know, do you find, because you've obviously done, you know, a lot of inspections, you've heard, like, you know, you've read reports and stuff like that. How many people do you come across where their house is immaculate? Because I'd imagine that there's not a lot of aftercare that goes into a home unless you're someone that's actively wanting to do a reno and you're doing it with purpose. But I find that, you know, when I'm like my home, I already know that I've probably needed to do the gutters. It's been a couple of years, all right? I'm not a perfect human, and I know if I probably got a building and pest, there'd be some stuff in it. How do you often do building and pest for people that just own their property already and they're just wanting to get like a health check? And how do you recommend it, or how often should you do that kind of stuff if you're not someone who actively kind of does anything to maintain your home?
Yeah, it's not super common for us to do that sort of health check, as you say. It's more, I think people get us in to do a check if they've noticed some cracking appearing, or they've gone, oh, there's some water pooling here, and they kind of like, oh, what's going on here? So then they call us and go, can you come and do a check on our home? And then and you sort of say, do you want me to just to check the cracking, or do you want me to do a whole inspection over the property and do a bit of a list of things and take all the photos and all the rest of it? But it's generally more for if they've noticed something going on. But it's a great idea because, like, if you can keep on top of your home, it's like your car. Everyone gets their car serviced, but they don't get their house serviced. And it's just these maintenance lists and things like the gutters, like some major defects I find, major cracking of buildings is due to the gutters overflowing. So it's pretty important to keep the gutters clean, for instance. There's things
I hope
like
my
that
partner's
around the
not
house.
listening. Yeah, because I just think about it another way. I maintain my house and I'm very millennial about it.
We do get some houses that we go to, and they are immaculate. They really are. Like, people have just kept the maintenance up on them. If they've noticed something, they've spent the money to fix it, and you walk in and you're like, wow. And they're generally, some of these houses, can be the 100-year-old homes, and they've just been kept beautifully. And I actually thank the vendors. I'm like, thank you for doing this. You're making my job easy, to keep your house so well intact. So it's great to see when I do see it, but it's not very common.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I was like, I think, people doing, once you acquire the house, you do so much to get the property, and then once you get it, all the other stuff that you should be doing doesn't happen. And then when you go to sell it, you start finding out about all the problems you have because buyers are coming in and doing due diligence, and the cycle starts again. It's interesting. What are the biggest myths you hear from buyers? Like, the house is, like, I always used to get this one from the agent. They used to say to me, well, the house is new, you don't need an inspection. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I don't know what trades did it.
Yeah.
I guess, there is that. It's a new house. It's under warranty, but it's still, we find weeks ago, and the balcony had moved quite a bit, and it was still under warranty. So it was allowing moisture ingress into the substrate, into the frame.
Far
and it was
out.
causing a bit of wood rot. Some of these houses, the Newcom ones or the newer ones, not as built as well as some of the old ones. But I think from a termite perspective, some of the myths. Well, a big one is the house is on a concrete slab and it's brick.
Right.
We don't need to get a termite inspection done. It's still got a timber frame, and actually houses on slabs, they can be more susceptible to termite damage because the termites can get in pretty easily through weep holes and cracks in the brickwork.
Oh, true.
And it's, the timbers are a lot closer to the ground, so actually houses on slabs are almost more susceptible to termite damage. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's pretty, so that's another one we hear a lot, and we're like, look, this is what we find, and we can pretty easily explain to a client who's saying that to us, that this is what we find, and they'll be like, okay, let's get it done.
Jeez.
And that's it with the newly built properties. Sometimes they aren't necessarily built so well, or there's been a mistake made, and if it's if it's something that isn't picked up and rectified, it might not cause an issue now, but 5 or 7 years down the track is when that issue is going to present itself and maybe cause costs more money to repair. So picking those things up straight away is most important.
And it's such I think, an important thing to get checked because, like you said, I didn't realise about the slab part. I always thought, you do hear it if people go, my house is on stumps, so I'll get it checked. Oh, the house is on a slab and it's double brick, don't worry about it, That's a really good tip for anyone listening. So it's really, there's no house that's going to be, and I think we know that generally, there's not a house that's going to be immune unless it's maybe built out of pure steel or something, I don't know. Then we're dealing with bunkers and that's a whole different problem. And do you find that there's like with property in general, because apartments, right, that's a one type of building structure, but you can't do much about what affects your individual space. Do you think that's true? Because I've seen this online where people go, there's no point, I'm in an apartment, I'm paying for 4 walls and building's not going to bother me.
Going back to what I said before about balconies. So
pretty
much
true.
all apartments have balconies. So we often find that, balconies can leak to the inside of the apartment. They can come in, the moisture can get through into the lounge area.
Shit.
But also, again, leaky bathrooms, and we always test in apartments the ceiling above, so if there's any moisture coming down from the bathrooms above. So that can be, that's a big thing we always check, and it's really common. Yeah, we do a lot of apartments. Obviously, the risk on things like termites aren't as bad, but we still always find things that need to be addressed. Yeah. So, and they can get onto them early. Then that's great. But sometimes they've caused caused a bit of damage along the way.
Yeah, I totally get that. For anyone tuning in who's thinking about, do I get built? I know my answer to this, but to you guys, when's the best time to get your building in Pest? Because a lot of you can either do it before you make an offer, right? Auction, it's always auction, but when you're doing like a negotiation, you always tend to be after the fact. What's your kind of advice to people who are tuning in who are like, maybe they're going to an auction this weekend, maybe they're placing an offer at the moment? When's the best time to engage you guys?
Well, from what we understand, before offer, before auction is where the purchaser has the ball in their court. If the contract is subject to a building and pest inspection, the ball is probably more in the vendor's court. So, but it really depends on the process that the real estate agent is running. So a purchaser might want to have the inspection done before making an offer and have their offer based on the findings in the report, but sometimes depending on the amount of competition on a property, or how the process is getting run, they may not be able to have it done when they want, and so we just need to work with the conditions that they're presented with at the time. So, but it happens either way. But for auction, absolutely without question. You're buying unconditional, so you need to get it done before that auction. No,
good advice. I think that makes sense, because often I've seen people, when there's like no other buyers, like you said, it's very circumstantial, right? Like if there's a lot of demand for a property, then you got to think about, well, what's going to win me the property, what's not going to win me the property, and you have a different approach. But when there's no one and, you've had the luxury of time and you're making that offer, it can absolutely strengthen your negotiation to say, so see that. This is the report. I'm not going to offer that much, and here's my price. And I've seen people win that way before. And, I wanted to move on, again, straight from Reddit. I want to read out a couple of concerns, and I want to get your take on them. All right, so let me go into the first one. So I think that this is easily debunked with you guys, because I've seen your reports. I don't understand the inspection report. So you've already answered, you said you make your reports abundantly clear and photos tell the story, right? Where do you see this fall down, in comparison with others? What else? Because it's like a big report. How many pages is generally in there?
I was 50-something. There's probably 300 to 400 photos in a lot of reports, in most reports. I'd average about sort of 50, 60 photos just on moisture readings around the property, and thermal imaging shots, just to, on a sort of stand at home.
Jeez.
Yeah, and to put into perspective, a friend of mine this week sent me a building report that he got done. He's up in Queensland, so I couldn't go up and do it for him, unfortunately. He sent me the report, and the report had 3 photos with moisture readings and nothing on the roof exterior, nothing in the roof voids, and there was photos in it, and the report, I guess, was okay, but I sort of looked at it and went, there's not enough in it. But the guy who did the inspector, he met my friend on site, and he said he was awesome, and he did a really thorough job. So these inspectors are doing great jobs, but their report writing can sort of sometimes
fall short.
So, and that's where you get these comments about the reports. I don't understand it. They frustrate me. So I get somebody who's not reading reports. It's going to frustrate them and not understand it either.
No, that's good that you guys take so much pride in that reporting, because like I said, when I saw it, I was very, very impressed. I understood it. So. We have another one here that says, we trusted the seller's report and missed major issues. Why is it risky to rely on the vendor's inspector? I really like this one. It's interesting.
It's an interesting question, because I did a vendor's report last week, which we don't do a lot of in Victoria. It's a state-by-state thing. In Queensland, the vendors are supposed to get the report done. But I guess from a reporting, like the vendor's report I did last week, my report was as thorough as what I would do if it was a pre-purchase, because at the end of the day, if I miss something, the insurance is on me. So I don't do the vendor any favours because they're paying for the report. I actually tell them, straight up that my report's going to be super thorough. I just expect to find, I'm going to find major defects. And this house I think it had 3 major defects.
Crap.
And that, but the vendor was like, cool. But they just wanted to. So I guess it's case by case. If you get an inspector who's not doing a thorough job, then you're going to get that. And I totally get the, there might be some inspectors that do a bit of a deal for the vendors, but that's certainly not the way we work.
No, of course.
At the end of the day, the risk is on the inspector. If someone purchases the property based on the report and something's been missed, then they're not suing the real estate agent, they're not suing the vendor, they're
That's
the
true.
building inspector. So it's in their best interest to do the best job that they can do and the most thorough job.
Of course. And I think the other part is like if you've gone, because obviously if you haven't guys, let's say you haven't done the report for this particular vendor, like the vendor report side, right? And it's a buyer who's relying on another building and pest, would you say to them that they should get their own for their own due diligence, or not necessarily, like they can trust whatever the vendor's brought with them? Like just more of an opinion.
Yeah, I guess we do. We've had that before where clients have said there's a vendor's report done, and they go and they've sent it to, or like, can we send you the vendor's report? And can you assess it and then give us your feedback whether you think it's worth getting us out there to do another report? And basically, we can't. I say no, I can't, because I can't look at someone else's report and go, yeah, that looks good, to a client
because you've never seen the house.
Never seen the house. So we just say, look, we need to go in there. So we always advise that it's best for us to go in there.
Yep.
From that aspect, the vendor's report might be great, but we can't give any kind of like approval on that or even look at it, because it really puts us in a tricky situation if something is missed. So we always advise to get an independent inspector in.
Oh, I think that's spot on. Yeah, I would say the same, because you can't always trust everyone else's, reporting, like you don't know, not because they're bad inspectors or they've done the wrong thing, just because, like you said, you guys can't interpret a report and just pop in and go, oh, actually, yeah, mate, that looks good. See you later. You'll be right.
And as a purchaser, it's who you trust to give you the information as well. So, some people aren't comfortable trusting someone else's report, whereas other people might go at that level of risk where they're happy to,
Yeah, that's right.
And the report I did last week for the vendor, I spoke to one of the potential buyers yesterday. Actually, and it was a brother who was a builder, so I had a chat to him about the vendors, the report I did, and went through it all, and he was like, cool, thanks mate, that all sounds good. Sort of thing. So that was me doing the vendor's report, but then talking to potential buyers to give them a bit of a run through of the report and sort of, give a bit of an overview, I guess.
And I think they would value that quite a bit, being walked through the actual process. Like it's one part to read a report and receive a report, but then to actually have it be something where the inspector calls you and talks to you about it, I think is awesome. Because one of this goes into my, my next part here is I want to talk about you guys, like in the sense of your business, because, I want to help our listeners understand what they can expect with you guys, like your difference in market. So, what does a full 8-point inspection include typically?
Well, I guess from the point of when I get to a job. So the inspection,
I guess it really starts before. It starts with the inquiry.
Yeah.
So the client contacting us to talk us through what property they want inspected, what's the time frame. We're finding out all of that information from them up front, understanding what requirements they have and deadlines, etc. And then from there, it's we get it booked in for them. So we take them out as the middleman. We liaise with the agent, the vendor, whoever we need to secure the time, and confirm all that back with them. And then, next call they get is from the inspector, after they've done the inspection, and that's when you guys sort of take over.
Yeah, and we go room by room, open and closing doors, windows, doing everything. We climb under the subfloor, go for a good crawl under the subfloor, and put our mask on and
I couldn't do
all
your
our
job.
gear, and go through the cobwebs and all the rest of it. Inside the roof space, we put our ladder up around the exterior. Yeah, they're super thorough, and we're sort of a couple of hours on these inspections just to go through every aspect of the property and really take our time and look at everything basically, and just walk around, feel the floors if they're bouncy, even things like smells a bit musty. I do mould inspections as well, so I'm quite onto it with mould, and especially if the property's being freshly painted and it still smells quite damp. I'm like, there's something going on here. So as soon as you walk into a property, you can sort of start gauging what the property's gonna, what defects are gonna pop up, and sort of starts to tell a story of what I'm expecting to find. So yeah.
That sounds so interesting to me. It's like, because your experience is, you've got so much of it. Like you would be able to walk in and go, right, here we go. We're going to have mould for sure.
Mould for sure. Age of the property, asbestos. Mark out, all the areas that we suspect there's going to be asbestos. And asbestos is an interesting one because some people really freak out with asbestos. So it's also pointing out these asbestos areas or suspected asbestos and just sort of, saying to them, look, it's okay, leave it alone, but if you're going to do a bathroom renovation, it's likely to be in behind the tiles, so don't go nuts on the weekend and start ripping things apart.
Yeah.
There's likely to be asbestos there. One, either you get it tested, costs about $80, or you get an asbestos company and they remove the tiles and the asbestos and then you're sort of done. But it's more sort of educating them around that as well. Like, I'm not saying there's, the asbestos is all broken and it's, it's not going to get into your lungs and all the rest of it, but it's more, it's there, and just, learn how to deal with it. And that's every house kind of pre-80s, so it's really common to...
I can imagine.
So things like that are pretty important to point out as well.
Yeah, for sure. You guys promise reports within 24 hours, which I imagine is a bit of a feat. But how do you maintain quality, like when you're going at that speed?
Well, to be honest, we're actually going... The big part of our inspections and what we get all our guys to do is actually take their time. Like Brooke and B in the office, when they're booking jobs, they go, right, the job should take this much time, the driving and all the rest of it, but it's all about giving them as much time as possible and not being rushed. So in actual fact, like I sort of am writing my report while I'm doing the job. So when it comes time to finishing off the report, then it's not too bad. But we actually take our time on doing reports. We try to only do 2-3 jobs a day, 3 sort of max, I guess. Just because,
that makes sense.
A couple of small ones, but 2 jobs max because we don't want anyone to rush because 1, your report quality comes down, 2, you might miss something, and you're not aware of what's going on as well with the reports. So and our reporting systems and our reporting app are really good. Like we use pretty cool apps and tools and all the rest of it to really help us with the speed and the...
And then when we're scheduling the inspections in, we're giving them enough time so that if they are finding something and it's taking them a bit longer than we expect, then we've got time in the diary for them to
follow up,
so that they're not late to the next inspection. If they are early, then they can sit in the car and work on their report while they're waiting for the agent to turn up. So it's sort of it's about making sure that we're giving them enough time and space to do a really good job.
That's awesome. I love that because, there's so many companies I know of, not dropping names, but I'm sure everyone can guess, but it's where it's very much just do as many as you can and get out to the job and get it done. And I've seen some real shocking reports in my time. I'm like, how much time did this person spend there? Like 15 minutes? Like, I haven't got anything out of this.
Well, another big part of it is, with the real estate agents giving us access.
Yeah.
It's pretty common for them to go, what, you're going to be an hour, 45 minutes? And I'm like, no, mate, I'll be 1.5, 2 hours. And they're like, oh, really? And, generally they go, oh, well, in an hour or so. And I'm like, yep, just leave me to it. But it's pretty much, it's a really common thing for agents to say, 45 minutes, an hour.
Oh, how do you navigate
for 20 minutes?
Yeah, and we just tell them straight up. And even these guys in the office go, is there a key safe or is there something? Because our guys take their time to...
Yeah, we spend a lot of time working with the agent to make sure that they're giving the inspector enough time. Otherwise, we won't book it in. We sort of say, look, that's not enough time. It's going to put our inspector under pressure. And so if we can't get the time that we need for the inspection, then we'll look at other alternatives or go back to the client to sort of say, hey, they're not giving us enough access time to do a thorough inspection. And sometimes that throws up red flags when the agents are trying to rush you through. Yeah,
because I'm like, I know they can be pretty persistent. They're like, TikTok, let's go. How long have we got? And good on you guys for like holding, holding on to that fact of like, no, we do need time, and if you need to tell me when you've got a window of 2 hours, right, for us to get through it, depending, of course, on size of properties and all of that. I guess the last part here is like one of the few questions I have is, what should people look for when they're choosing a good inspector?
Well, I think it's
experience.
Experience,
experience is
Google
a big one.
Google reviews is a great one, but as long as they're going to communicate well with you, and we often send these guys out some of our sample reports. If they're going, we're looking at different inspectors and costs, we're probably a little bit more expensive than a lot of companies. Yeah. But we send them some sample reports going, this is why we're expensive. Yeah. Why we charge a bit more, because we do this thorough job. So if people are looking for an inspector, it's, often you can get them to send them a sample report and see how good they're communicating and all the rest of it. But yeah, and also being, having some kind of qualification as well is pretty important. So that really helps.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, time in the game, their background, sample reports. Because we're not the cheapest, we know people are shopping around, and I always sort of say, look, we're not the cheapest.
Yeah, of
Here's a
course.
sample report. But make sure if you're choosing someone else that they've got all of these things lined up as well, because you don't want to be, paying, a lower price and getting a half
job.
standard job. Yeah.
No, and it's super important. And, I want to go through like the last party, which is like final advice for buyers and all our listeners. Like this has been such a great conversation. I'm so thankful for you guys, sharing your insights. What's one thing that you wish every buyer knew before, doing their building and pest, or after, like when they're going through their offer process and buying a home?
I guess there's probably not one thing. It's just the overall, overall thing, and just probably a bit of an understanding of what things are going to cost, and a realistic understanding of what things are going to cost. Bathroom renovations are gone, up quite a lot. Everything's gone up. So it's some people ask us, what do you think this is going to cost? And we can give sort of ballpark figures. Years ago it'd be like, 20 grand. Now it's like 40 grand, 50 grand sort of thing. So I guess really understanding every defect in a house, everything we find can be fixed. But I guess it's just that cost value, because that really affects everything on what they're going to pay for the property. When they go on auction, they'll be like, right, we need to keep $100,000 in our back pocket because bathroom's leaking and all the rest of it. So I guess it's not really one thing. It's just an overall thing. And I suppose money stresses are pretty big when you're going into buying a property.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of first home buyers,
Of course.
when it comes to the building and pest inspection, they don't have very good knowledge of
No.
what it's about or what's involved, and even the whole purchase process is really overwhelming for them. So, just I guess having more information, which a podcast like this is on point for, is actually being able to walk in with their eyes wide, a bit more wide open. They're never going to be totally wide open, but just having a little bit more knowledge to be able to navigate that whole process when you're spending
All that money.
the most amount of money you're probably ever going to spend in your life on one thing.
One asset.
So, yeah.
No,
It's pretty
makes
scary.
sense.
And it's great for the first-time buyers or anyone to know that there is the buyers advocates. There's so much help out there
Yeah.
to help you navigate this scary situation for a lot of people. Just to use them, spend a bit of money and use these services that's out there.
Yeah.
And then it helps when we work together with, good building and pest inspectors too. I often say get your buying team right. Like, a really good, conveyancer, good building and pest inspectors, a mortgage broker, and then if you want an advocate, we'll tie it all up together. We'll make sure, that we work well with them, and that, when you need things done, we take the stress away. Everyone's got such an important role to play in your purchase journey. So I'm glad that, you've put it right. It's a big investment, number one, and number two, you go through a property, get a building and pest, and you're going to potentially know if this house is going to cost you another $50,000 just fixing problems that didn't exist, or that you're going to inherit. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, Drew and Brooke, thank you both so much for sharing your expertise, your experience and stories today. Is there any last piece of final advice that you want to give our listeners, anyone that's tuning in who's about to head out to auction or head out to their, make an offer this weekend? Is there anything you want to say to those guys tuning in?
If you're going out there and want, you've got some questions, give us a call. It's pretty friendly sort of a chat. Doesn't mean you have to get an inspection done.
Yeah.
Give us a call, ask some questions and sort of gauge, help us help you sort of thing. It's pretty easy to pick up the phone and give us a call, or give any inspector a call just to help you along that journey.
I love that. Good solid words. And Brooke, anything from your side?
I think I'll probably just reiterate to Drew, we're happy to take
Chat.
a call to walk you through what will be involved, to answer any questions. We often get clients sort of saying, look, I've seen this and I've seen that, and I mean, I'm no building inspector, but I've heard this one talk for the last 10 years about inspections. So I always speak to them with a caveat. I'm no building inspector, but from what I understand, this or this might be happening. Or the property's, built in the 80s, so you might have asbestos in these areas. So, more than happy to share information. And like Drew said, it doesn't mean you have to pay for a building inspection, but if it helps to answer some questions, give some more information.
And peace of mind, I think, too.
Yeah. Before you go out there and inspect properties on a weekend, then we're happy to happy to share what we know.
That's awesome. And, guys listening, seriously, take them up on the offer. It doesn't cost much to make a phone call if you're not sure about something. Have the chat. And then you might find that you're like, hey, this is actually really good. I feel comfortable. I'm going to go ahead and get a building and pest. And if this episode hasn't convinced you, I don't know what will. So don't open yourself up to too much damage. Like I said, guys, thank you so much for being here today. I think, your experience and stories, it's going to help a lot of our listeners who have been teetering on that edge of, what do they do? What should they do? And it's clear that a great building and pest inspection is not just a box to tick. It's a real protection for what's likely the biggest investment of your life. So to summarise what we've learnt today, everyone, a building inspection and pest inspection are two different things and equally important checks to get done. Vendors supplied reports might not tell the full story, but you always commission your own just to do your due diligence. And the right advice at the right time can save you tens of thousands and a whole lot of stress. So pick up the phone, have a chat to A Point. Drew and Brooke are two lovely people. I've actually thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and it's so educational. I love it when it's all focused like that. So good on you guys for coming in, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Now, if you're buying a home, especially in Victoria, check out 8 Point Building Inspections. With their speed, service and people-first approach, they're a must-have part of your property team. And thanks again for tuning into the No BS Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review and share an episode with a mate who's in the market. We'll catch you next week. That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodey AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodey.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodey AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodey.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.